Welcome to Caregiver SOS On Air, presented by the WellMed Charitable Foundation, with nationally known gerontologist Carol Zernail and award-winning veteran broadcaster Ron Aaron. This program provides health, wellness, and other information for caregivers who are vital to the health and well-being of so many people across our country. And now, here are your hosts, Ron Aaron and Carol Zernail.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the award-winning Caregiver SOS On Air. I'm Ron Aaron. We've got a great topic today, and if you want to hear it on podcast, you can always do that again and again and again. We're also on the radio in a number of cities in Texas and Florida as well. Our special guest today is Martha McPhee. Before we get her, let's talk with Carol Zernail. Carol's a nationally known gerontologist. She has a master's degree in gerontology, social gerontology, and we're delighted to have her with us again. And Carol, when you talk about caregiving, we rarely talk about the caregiver who's not a family member, who's the outside caregiver.
Well, most of us, or many of us, that are in a caregiving situation at some point may employ somebody, have somebody from a service come and join our family for the caregiving period to help. I know I did. I had someone who helped my mother who had Alzheimer's. And then after she passed and my father was alone and in his 90s, she came back to us again. So these are important people in our lives.
Well, we're going to welcome Martha McPhee. We've had her on before. She's a great guest. She's the author of the novels An Elegant Woman, Dear Money, L'America, Gorgeous Lies, and Bright Angel Time. She's also the author of Omega Farm, a wonderful memoir. Her work has been honored with fellowships from the National Endowment of the Arts and the John Simon Guggenheim Memorial Foundation. And we're, as I said, we've had her on before, and we really enjoyed that conversation. And when you Google Martha McPhee, amazing photos come up of Martha and like 4,000 kids and family members gathered on Omega Farm. So, Martha, great to have you with us again.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Now, when we were talking off the air about the direction we should go in this interview, you mentioned that you developed a very strong relationship with the woman who was caring for your mom.
I did. Her name is Cynthia. And she took care of my mom for the hardest. My mom had dementia. She died a year ago. And Cynthia was there for the last 3 years of her life, and which are the hardest when it comes to the decline of that happens with dementia. It's the hardest part when the patient stops being able to walk, becomes incontinent, all these really hard things. But I'll back up a little bit and say that these relationships are very hard on the caregiver. And with dementia, because it's such a frustrating, difficult illness, I had heard, I think it was a sister who told me that the average span that a person can endure is about 7 months. And then if they're doing it full time, and then they can't do it anymore. And in fact, my mother had a former caregiver that was there during the pandemic. And at the end of it, she really couldn't do it anymore. And the relationship just came to an end. And I was desperate. I thought, how am I ever going to find somebody? And I was doing this alone partly because of the pandemic, but I cast a wide net, and through my children's babysitter when they were little, I found Cynthia, and she came out to my mother's house, which is in rural New Jersey. She lived in Brooklyn, and she was brought by all her grandchildren and her daughter and all these people, and I immediately became attached to her, and she loved my mom in a way that I had just not seen anybody do. And so when my mother died 3 years later, and after all that bonding time and hard work that we went through together, I asked her to stay on. And so she still lives at my mom's house, even though my mom isn't there. And it's, I think, a pretty unusual situation, because she's taking care of the house in a way. She's still taking care of my mom. But she is my mom's not there. So it's odd. I have four sisters, and I think they think this is sort of weird, but they come to appreciate its value
How
and
do you
why.
introduce her to people?
As my mother's caregiver, and now as my friend. I see her as my friend. But a lot of people that come through this house already knew her because they'd come to visit my mom. But I say both things, that she took care of my mom for 3 years. And Cynthia loves to garden, and my mom has a lot of gardens at her house. And it was really through that that we bonded, because there's only so much you can do with someone with dementia. So we would go outside and take care of her gardens. And Cynthia had loved to do this job. And so we continue to do that. And it I don't know, it's this bond also that makes Cynthia feel close to her mother, and she lost her mother when she was a child. And so we're both, I don't know, there's something about the earth and growing flowers and being in this spot that, I don't know, is sort of like, the reward of that hard work.
Now, hold that thought. We're going to come right back to you, but I want to let folks know who may have just joined us. You're listening to the award-winning Caregiver SOS On Air. Our podcasts are available wherever you get your podcast. We also are on the radio in several cities in Texas and Florida as well. Carol Zernail, our co-host, is here. And you mentioned, Martha, off the air that your 94-year-old dad, who himself struggles with a variety of issues, is now the caregiver for his wife.
That's true. That is, and for example, Cynthia could go and work for him, but he does not want anybody helping him. He cherishes this time with his wife, and it's actually an incredibly beautiful thing to see. They've been together for many, many years. I was 4 when my parents split up, and they got together shortly thereafter. The stepmother has all sorts of connotations, but to see how much he loves her and he cares for her is a remarkable thing that makes all of us, all of my sisters and me, see just how deeply this experience, how much it means to him, I should say. He cooks for her. He can hardly see. He's got glaucoma that makes him 50% blind. And he has peripheral neuropathy, so he's not so steady on his feet. Yet he's sharp as a tack, and he cherishes their routine. He has a very clear routine. And to watch him take care of her, it's just beautiful.
Well, I think you bring up a really good point about variation in caregivers. I mean, we've talked to some caregivers, as soon as mom can't cook anymore, oh, she needs to go to assisted living, she can't cook. And here you have your father with all of these health challenges and limitations, and yet he embraces all that. For him, it's not a problem. It can be difficult, but it's not a problem.
No, he asks for help from his daughters. He has 4, and he is eager for our help, but he doesn't want outside help. He wouldn't want a Cynthia. And I think of all of my sisters and my dad, he thinks, I know he thinks it's completely bizarre that Cynthia remains with us. But he also understands it. He also understands how she can contribute and how she's become a part of the family in a sense. But he doesn't want that. He doesn't want it for his wife. He wants to do that work. Now, to be fair, dementia comes in all different forms. And my mother, toward the end, really couldn't do anything for herself at all. She couldn't even sit up without help. My stepmother is not there at this point. She is still mobile, still continent, still able to speak, if only a little bit. So it will get harder.
As she spirals down, will he then ask for more help?
He'll have to. But he does not want to. Really interesting to me is he has the resources. He could get the help, but he really, really wants to do this himself. It's well, he doesn't want anybody to intrude on the amount of time they have left. And it's a point of pride and real love. It's his way of giving love.
Well, we'll talk about a little bit more about Cynthia and the care that she provided. Is this a part of also your transition out of caring for your mother? Is this ease?
That's a great question. I don't. It's so hard. It's so hard to think of. What's happened is this is our childhood home that our mother left to the 5 daughters, and we all have lives elsewhere, and so she in some ways allows us to keep that home, which allows us to have the continuity with our mom, who we all had very strong attachment to. So yes, she might be part of that, but she's also, I don't know that I'm going to ever transition out of it. So she's also part of allowing it to stay. But I guess there will be a natural transition because she probably won't stay there forever. And she's 75. So I'm sure she'll want to go and be with her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. So I'll be forced to, but it's certainly a softer landing.
So that's the farm that wasn't really a farm?
Yes, the farm of Omega Farm. Yes, it is. Exactly. With all those kids. No, I was just going to say, with all those kids that you see in the pictures on my website and elsewhere, there were 10 of us growing up.
Yeah, those photos are amazing. And all you have to do is Google Martha McPhee and you will find that.
I will say my mother was a photographer. She was a brilliant photographer. And she spent most of her life capturing us. And she also had a career, but they're hers, most of them.
Stay with us just a minute. We're going to come right back to you. If you just joined us, you're listening to the award-winning Caregiver SOS on Air. I'm Ron Aaron. Carol Zernail, our co-host, is here. We're talking with Martha McPhee, and we're talking about an aspect of caregiving that we haven't really talked much about, and that is after the caregiving, bonding with the caregiver. You're listening to the award-winning Caregiver SOS on Air.
Well, thank you so much for listening to Caregiver SOS on Air. We're delighted to have you with us. We come to you every week with a discussion of an issue, a problem, some accomplishments involved in caregiving with more than 60 million caregivers across this country, but most thinking they are the Lone Rangers. We try to bring you the latest information and help that can make that job easier and more manageable. Caregiver SOS on Air takes a look at trends across this country. We provide tips on how to be a better caregiver, and most importantly, where you can go for help. On Caregiver SOS on Air, we try to give you what you need to make that caregiving manageable and to provide you with the help that can make your life easier. I'm Ron Aaron. Carol Zernail and I are delighted to co-host this program, and we're thrilled you've joined us on the award-winning Caregiver SOS on Air podcasts available everywhere, brought to you by WellMed Charitable Foundation.
Hello, friend. Hello, friend. Really good to see you once again. Hello, friend. Hello, friend. Really good to see you once again.
Well, thank you so much for sticking with us right here on the award-winning Caregiver SOS on Air. Our podcasts are available wherever you listen to your podcast. We're also on the radio in several cities in Texas and Florida as well. Carol Zernail, our co-host, is here, and we're having a wonderful conversation with Martha McPhee. You may know her book, Omega Farm. We talked about it, a memoir. She was on with us a couple of years ago, and we're picking up on the relationship that she and her family have with her late mother's caregiver. And you were starting to tell me off the air, Martha, about how in addition to the caregiving that Cynthia provided, your mom toward the end was in hospice.
She was. She was actually in hospice so long she was kicked off a few times. So we got to know these people very well, and they were just all so wonderful. I can't say enough great about it was called Ascend Hospice. Each person was really special, and from the pastor to so they sent a musician to come and play to her, the woman who took care of her during the week, and we became very close with all of them. I think it's a really intimate thing to go through, where you're actively helping somebody die, and you have this support from Cynthia um and in this case also hospice. And I think that I don't hear people talk about the bond a lot that happens, but I do think it's so intimate that I don't think that just brushing it away. I mean, my case with Cynthia might be a bit extreme, but I do think there must be a process because of the nature of that relationship for, understanding it and understanding where it rests in your heart, really.
So, Carol, folks may not understand that you can get kicked off of hospice if you keep living.
Well, it is true. There's an expectation that hospice is for people who are in the last stages of life. But I have known multiple people who enjoy good health coming back to them. They get kicked off, and when they requalify, they get the help again. But I think, Martha, what I'm taking away from what you're talking about is that with hospice, with a private paid caregiver, with a service, I mean, all caregiving and the help that we get, we don't have to limit it to one thing. My mother moved to assisted living with her Alzheimer's because my father couldn't take care of her. But our Susan, the caregiver, also went to see her, make sure she was eating, and was those extra hands in the assisted living facility. So we didn't just stop because she had, quote, 24/7 care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a complicated thing, and so emotionally. And talking about it makes me, realize that even more. But it is, you can't do it alone. You need, even if it's your sister, it's a very big thing to go through. The value of this podcast is, no wonder it's award winning, because I'm sure it's so helpful to many, many people.
Now, as you think about all the time and energy that Cynthia put in to care for your mom, and how much time and energy you put into that relationship as well, what is it you take out of that?
I would not do anything differently. I wouldn't. I have two children. My mother had dementia for 13 years. And she has four other daughters, but she spent most of that time with me for various reasons. And my children they grew up. My son was 7 or so years old at the time, maybe even younger. He shared a bed with her initially in our New York City apartment. And, I was divided, as a mom and as a daughter. So I couldn't give everything to my kids in the same way, but I think that is a good thing for them to have seen, because this is the process of life. And, I know that it's important to be able to have the option of putting somebody in a home, because it doesn't work for everybody to be able to do what I did. But in my particular case, I am so grateful that I have the career that I have, that I was, able to be there really close with my mom. And I'll never regret that. And even if it took something away from my kids, I know it gave them more than it took.
Well, you mentioned that Cynthia came to you after the pandemic, or towards the end of the pandemic. Yeah. Was your mother still able to recognize Cynthia? Did they have a relationship, or was it really later, that in her dementia that she really couldn't?
Okay, so that's a great question, because comes to something that I think is so important about dementia. And that is that I felt till the very end that my mom was there. In fact, I would tell her, I said to her, her favorite was my little half sister, Joan. And Joan was coming home. And I told mom that. Joan, on Wednesday, Joan is coming. I kept saying it was September something, end of September. And then another sister was coming. And I said, Sarah's coming. And the day that Joan got there, my mother stopped eating. And all five of us came home. I know that she was very aware it was time for her to go. And she wanted us to be there with her. And this was the opportunity. And we were. I'm going to start crying. But we were all there. So my mom was very aware. She was aware of Cynthia that 3 years before this, and I mean, I could tell she felt very close with Cynthia. But I think it's easy to forget when somebody seems so far away and locked out that they're there in some form or other. They are there. And my father says that to me now. He says, "Be careful about what you say, because my stepmother Yolanda's there. She's she knows what she knows what you're saying." And I think it's really easy to forget that.
And
and that changes all of our interactions as well.
Yeah.
The way, if
Yeah.
we're talking to somebody who's there versus someone who's not, it changes every interaction.
Yeah, 100%.
Now, with all of you
And Cynthia
together,
also got that.
with all of you together, is that when your mom passed away?
Yeah, we were. She stopped eating on the Wednesday. Joan came home on the Wednesday. Sarah came the Thursday. I was there, and then I called Laura and Jenny, and they came down. Laura came from Idaho, and Jenny came, and she died Sunday night, close to midnight. And I'll tell you, we didn't call hospice right away. We couldn't let her go. And my sister cleaned her up with Cynthia and another woman who her mom had died, and she came over to help dress her. And the hospice came in the morning. But we know we were singing songs and playing the guitar and reading from her journals, and with her in her bed as she was, getting the morphine and slowly leaving. But I am 100% sure that she called us all home. She knew Joan was coming, and she decided that was how she was going to do it.
How did you feel about that?
I felt, I'm going to cry. I'm so grateful. Really.
Yeah.
Spiritual, grateful, gratitude.
It was a beautiful choice she made.
She had all 5 children and her dog. Yeah. It was powerful. And I'll say, Cynthia was so much a part of this, and that she just feels like family. And I know that not everybody's going to be able to have that kind of situation, that most circumstance doesn't allow for that. And this is a particular thing. So I'm not advocating that everybody hang on to but in some way or other, it's, what I think moves me so much, not about my mom and how she orchestrated her death, which is very much my mom too, is just honoring the service, honoring the love, honoring the care, because it's a hard care. I mean, his traditional, I mean, not I don't know what it is, but it isn't paid well in most places. It's hard work, but it is in some ways, and I'm not a particularly religious person, but in some ways it is spiritual work. There is a real bond there that is larger than just circumstance.
It's a wonderful story. Were you all in the room as midnight approached?
Yes,
And she passed
we were.
away?
Mm-hmm.
You were there when she took her last breath.
Yes, we were all there. All 5 of her daughters and 2 of her step sons whom she loved very much.
Well, I appreciate
and some of their children.
I appreciate you sharing that story with us, as well as honoring Cynthia and all those frontline caregivers that work with us as families.
Yeah, they're real saints. They
Well,
are.
we'll put an exclamation mark on the end of this interview. Thank you so much. Truly.
Thank
truly
you. Sorry, I
appreciate
got
the time.
emotional. It's
No,
been
it was
a year
wonderful.
and something, and
Martha McPhee,
but it
thank you.
still hurts.
Carol
Thank
Zernail,
you.
thank you. It's a great, great description of those final moments. We thank you all for joining us today on the award-winning Caregiver SOS On Air.
The executive producer for Caregiver SOS On Air is Daniel Calderon. The producer is Sharice Pendleton. And the associate producer is Catherine Oglesby. We'll see you next week on Caregiver SOS On Air.
You've been listening to Caregiver SOS On Air, an exclusive presentation of the WellMed Charitable Foundation. We welcome emails with suggestions and comments on this program at radio@wellmed.net. Join co-hosts Carol Zernail and Ron Aaron next week for more on caregiving, improving the health and well-being of caregivers and their care recipients everywhere. For more on caregiving and podcasts of our programs, visit caregiversos.org.